If there's two things Batman is known for, it's his refusal to kill and dead parents. But for the sake of this video, the two things I want him to be known for are his gadgets and willpower. It seems like no matter what, Batman always has a gadget for whatever scenario he finds himself in. And those gadgets would be meaningless if he didn't have the immense willpower to spend nearly every waking moment using them. And this got me thinking, what if Batman didn't use his fists alongside these gadgets? What if he relied solely on his utility belt to get him through any issue he may face? Can you beat Batman Arkham Asylum with only gadgets? The rules for this challenge are simple. I can only use Batman's gadgets to damage thugs. I am not allowed to attack, counter, or cape stun at all, although evading over enemies is allowed. And for a reason that will very quickly become clear, I am giving myself every gadget at the beginning of the game, although I'm not allowed to use these gadgets to sequence break the story. One thing you may notice throughout the video is this wonderful Green Lantern suit mod by Mr. Just Arkham Games. You see, Batman mysteriously found a Green Lantern ring earlier when arresting Joker, and decided that for the rest of the night, he'd use it to give his knuckles a bit of a break. I know you can't actually see the ring on him, but trust me, it's there. Unfortunate for Batman though, his imagination isn't nearly as strong as his will, so while he is wearing a ring that grants him near infinite power, he's only creative enough to make constructs of the gadgets he already has. But with the Joker in custody and this newfound set of powers in Batman's possession, it was time to take on my first group of thugs. The first 7 enemies were easily taken down using nothing but batarangs to force them into this electric fence. I know this technically isn't knocking them out with just gadgets, but I don't see this as any different than knocking a thug off a ledge with explosive gel or the bat claw, so I'm allowing it. Next up were these 2 thugs in the hallway, and this is where I decided to give myself all the gadgets from the start. In a twist I truly didn't see coming, batarangs are completely unable to knock out thugs on their own. I'm not sure if they can't deal damage or if they're just unable to deal the final blow, but without any alternative methods of attack, I was out of luck. So I gave myself every gadget at their least upgraded forms, aside from the Ultra Bat Claw, since there's no way to give myself just the normal Bat Claw. And from here I started blasting. Explosive gel would be the primary method of attack for the majority of the run, seeing as it's one of 2 damage methods available to me. I didn't find out until much later, but kicking thugs with the line launcher does actually do a lot more damage, although it was more difficult to set up than just simply pulling thugs with the bat claw and then using explosive gel. Next up was Zsasz, who I thought for sure would be impossible to take down, but much to my surprise, I was able to use explosive gel to take him down without any issues. Even more surprising was the fact that for some reason, Zsasz uses a normal thug's voice effects when hit with explosive gel. As always, I proceeded through decontamination by ignoring all the guards and saving this random thug for XP. And with that, I was just a few thugs away from the first Titan fight. You see, it turns out that Batman wasn't the only one with Green Lantern powers, as Joker had figured out a way to create a formula made up of 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, and then a bunch of other things I really couldn't follow what he was saying after those 3. Joker had harnessed the power of the Green Lanterns and turned it into his own serum that he called Titan. If I wanted to stop him from taking over all of planet Earth, I was going to have to use some concentrated power of will myself. Considering the first Titan Thug is supposed to always die before it kills you, I didn't even waste my time with gadgets, and opted to do the speedrun strat here instead, letting him almost kill me so that he'd die quicker. Staring down such an easy defeat, Joker fled to rebalance his formula from the gargantuan mess it currently was, leaving me to track down Gordon, who was recently taken hostage by Arkham Asylum's very own Sans cosplayer. The next few thugs were really easy to take care of, so I picked up Bulls' trail and eventually made my way to the top of the elevator shaft. Here I had the idea to pull everyone to the ground before skipping over the fight by using the Batclaw on this vent. Unfortunately, my genius was not rewarded, and I instead had to resort to using this electric fence on them. The first few armed thugs were easily skipped by just going past them, and the final was skipped by using the Batclaw to open this vent instead of doing it manually, which typically gets you spotted and killed. The intensive treatment lobby was the first real Predator encounter of the run, and it was quite easy. Knocking thugs off ledges was the most obvious play, and I had multiple gadgets that would help me do just that. After finding out that Officer Balls had joined the Black Lantern Corps, my leads were officially all dried up. So it was time to get to higher ground and use my ring to contact the Guardians for advice.
Guardians. Nest has been breached. Abused. That information is not to be repeated.
Not really the information I was looking for, but sure. Since the Guardians weren't available to help, I stopped to talk to the guards, collected a ton of Riddler trophies, and then was on my way to the Batmobile. The thugs attacking the Batmobile were no match for the age-old strategy of being thrown into an electric fence, even if they did manage to get quite a few good hits in. Interestingly enough, since I already had the explosive gel, the game never required me to collect it from the trunk of the Batmobile. From here, I headed to the medical building, pulled all these thugs off this ledge, and then continued through the building until I reached sanitation. This room went basically the same as usual. Blow up these two weak walls and then knock everyone else off ledges. Although I was shocked when this one thug wasn't knocked out from this fall. Overall, this Predator encounter was the same as every other one in the run. Embarrassingly easy because of the abundance of ledges to throw people off of. Rescuing the doctors was simple enough too. I tried to skip knocking out these two thugs before entering patient observation, but unfortunately the game prevents you from taking off this vent cover before taking them out. Cash and Dr. Young were the same as they always are, and for Dr. Chen I just used this electric fence. This was a bit harder than usual since the space I had to work with was so small, but in the end I made it work. With the doctors rescued, I skipped the second Predator section in sanitation and was on my way forward. That's when I found out that willpower wasn't the only thing Joker had weaponized. With the help of Scarecrow, he had also found a way to weaponize fear, although rather ineffectively, because unsurprisingly, the first Scarecrow nightmare was mostly the same as normal. In fact, it was a bit faster than usual because of my gadget selection. With Scarecrow down, I continued forward and just happened to stumble across Gordon's location. In this section, you're supposed to sneak through these thugs and then take out Harley through the glass window. Since takedowns aren't exactly an option, I had only one trick up my sleeve, explosive gel. And that didn't exactly work for me the last time I tried. Much to my surprise though, it worked this time. Probably because everyone wasn't twice the size they're supposed to be at this point. Sure, Gordon also got pelted with all those glass shards, but at least Harley was down. I didn't have time to worry about Gordon's injuries anyways, because after a quick injection of Titan from Joker, Bane was roided up and ready to fight. Bane's boss fight was a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, gadgets made the fight much easier. Him running into the wall after being stunned by a batarang deals way more damage than just punching him, and the Batclaw allowed me to take out all of Joker's guys before they even tried to join the fight. On the other hand, the fight is literally impossible to beat with only gadgets. Batarangs on their own do nothing, explosive gel can't damage him permanently, and line launcher kicks force me into an A pose. It doesn't matter how much damage you deal to Bane, you'll always have to attack him in order to destroy his Venom tanks and permanently decrease his health. So even with this heavily modified and legitimately cheating rule set, the challenge is impossible. But that doesn't mean I'm stopping here. With Bane down, I finally met back up with Gordon, who I promptly handed over to a disguised Joker thug because I was sick of him making everything about himself. Next, I headed to the Batcave to analyze a lead that Oracle had found.
Dr. Young was heading up a project. Here are the last notes she filed.
Looks like she was experimenting on the Arkham patients. This new chemical only barely resembles the original
Power of will! There are a number of changes that appear to amplify the strength of the drug. Multiple references to a Titan formula. Even a small amount could trigger a transformation in the host, eliminating the need for the lantern
ring. Hang on, these notes aren't complete. The formula is missing. If Joker gets his hands on this, he will create an army of 1,000
lanterns.
So, not only was Joker trying to harness the power of the Green Lantern rings himself, he also had some help in trying to figure out the formula. Lucky for me, the current formula was clearly unsuccessful, but as long as Dr. Young was alive, I couldn't always guarantee that would be the case. So, the next order of business was to find and destroy Dr. Young's notes, and then put an end to her lifetime subscription to life. Unfortunately, that would have to wait a little bit, because finishing this cutscene and grabbing the Batclaw completely broke the game. Since I was acquiring the Batclaw after having already obtained the Ultra Batclaw, the game got a little bit confused. Completely unable to progress and stuck posing for a rap album cover, I reloaded the game and found that the only way to progress here was to just skip picking up the Batclaw. From here, I could just continue on as I normally would until the objective eventually updates. Technically, this does break the no sequence breaking rule, but I think there's a massive difference between this and going straight to Croc's lair or something like that, so I'm willing to allow a small sequence break like this. Heading to the Arkham Mansion, I got very scared when walking into a room of 10 thugs, knowing there'd be no easy way for me to take them down with just explosive gel and the line launcher. Lucky for me though, I didn't have to, since I remembered that this room has yet another electric fence to throw these thugs into. Now I feel like I should note that throughout the entire playthrough, I collected a lot of Riddler trophies and solved a lot of riddles. This was mainly because I had all the tools to do so, and because I wanted to stay ahead with upgrades. I also made sure to almost always have an upgrade point or two banked for healing myself with armor upgrades, since avoiding damage isn't the easiest in this challenge. Surprise, surprise, the library ended up being another combat encounter trivialized by the presence of an electric fence. After saving the hostages here, my objective finally updated, and I headed to the records room. Every Predator encounter in this run is the same, with me just pulling thugs over ledges, so there really isn't much to talk about here. After a bit more detective work, I eventually tracked down Dr. Young's formula, and confirmed my worst suspicions. She really had improved it. I did destroy what was obviously the only copy though, meaning that as soon as Dr. Young was dead, there was no way Joker could refine the formula any further. Before the second Scarecrow nightmare, I tried using the line launcher to get through this section quicker, but was unfortunately stopped. At least now I know this random obscure fact. The second Scarecrow nightmare was as easy as ever. The only part that changed was taking down these skeletons, which still wasn't that difficult since they go down from a single explosion. So I broke out of the nightmare, blew a couple thugs up, and was ready to kill Dr. Young. I did make sure to save her from Zsasz first though. I mean, I wasn't gonna let him have all the fun. Luckily, the only way to take down Zsasz here is with gadgets. With Dr. Young successfully saved, I got creative and used my lantern ring to put explosive gel on the safe she was opening, successfully killing her and destroying her backup notes. Now all that was left was to take down Joker and destroy his supply of the inferior Titan formula. I would get into how I cleared this combat encounter after Harley takes Sharp, but I'm sure you've all figured it out by this point. At the very least, this time was more interesting because of the final takedown. On my way to the Penitentiary, I managed to figure out something fairly strange. Different enemy types have different health pools, and not just the ones you'd expect to be different. The four main enemy types in this run are unarmed thugs, knife wielders, armed thugs, and lunatics. This is a basic table of the enemy types and how many of each damage type they can take. Normal thugs, knife wielders, and lunatics all have the same health pool, while armed thugs have significantly less health. Things are a bit weird though, and I'll explain why. Although line launcher kicks do more damage than explosive gel, they actually can't be used on their own to knock out thugs. Some other damage source will always need to deal the final blow. So even though it takes 7 explosive gel to knock out a normal thug, it'll take 4 kicks and 1 explosive gel, or 3 kicks and 2 explosive gel to knock out that same thug. In my testing, I also found that batarangs are just completely unable to deal damage. I tried throwing 10, and then 20, and then 60 batarangs on 3 separate attempts before resorting to explosive gel, and every attempt I still had to use 7 explosive gel. I will note that from what I tested, the combo batarang does actually deal damage, but I didn't do any extensive testing, so I don't really have any actual numbers for those. Anyways, now you know a little more about how gadgets affect damage output in this game. To clear the way to enter the Penitentiary, I used this electric fence to brutalize a few of these thugs in the most horrific ways imaginable. After entering and saving Warden Sharp, I was subjected to both the best and worst news imaginable, because while there were now 2 crazy hot women who wanted nothing more than to beat me to death roaming this island, there was also a bunch of lunatics roaming around, and those fuckers are bad news. They love to attack by jumping on Batman, dealing damage until you can get them off. The only problem is that the only way to get them off is to throw them, which directly goes against the entire point of this challenge. So, the fact that lunatics one-shot me, combined with how inconsistent batarangs are on them, suffice it to say I died to lunatics many, many times. I didn't have any time to worry about this now though, because I had about 16 million thugs to take care of in the main cell block. Now, if you thought that this fight would be anywhere near as hard as I am whenever I see Ivy's feet, you'd be mistaken, because this fight was just a matter of throwing people over ledges and into electric fences. For the first wave, I mainly used this fence here, and a combination of the Bat Claw and explosive gel to throw the other two thugs over ledges. And for the second wave, I just had to run down this hallway and drag them all down into this fence. Unfortunately, I was still no match for a single lunatic, forcing me to do the entire fight over again before eventually getting my revenge on him. On the bright side, the extreme incarceration fight was as easy as ever. The easiest strat here anyways is to use a mixture of evades, batarangs, and the Bat Claw to just throw everyone over these ledges. The stun time from using the Bat Claw also made it very easy to get thugs electrocuted, so that was a bonus. With that taken care of, I took down Harley and uncovered my worst nightmare. There were other copies of Dr. Young's notes, and if there were enough lying around that even Harley had one, I was certain that Joker had to have some too.
Test subjects.
Came out, I had to buy it.
An army of Titan monsters.
Came out, I had to buy it. Tears of the Kingdom came out, I had to buy it.
Upon further questioning, I found out Joker had a secret lab in the gardens where he was working on the second iteration of the formula. I had to stop him before it was too late. Traversing the island at this point was genuinely terror-inducing, given the fact that dozens of one-shot killing machines were roaming the island with absolutely no feasible way to take them all down. My strategy whenever I wasn't dying to them was to just try to sneak past, although at times it felt more like a horror game than a stealth game while doing this.
No. Oh my god, the game is absolute trash. The game is
After finally arriving at the Botanical Gardens, things weren't that bad to start out. The same main three gadgets were used to take down entire rooms of armed thugs, but things quickly became difficult after entering the glasshouse generator room, because for once in this run, I'm being asked to down a room full of thugs without any electric fences to throw them into or ledges to toss them over. Technically, there is a ledge and electric fence in this room, but both are inaccessible for the thugs, meaning I actually had to get good at the game. I tried using the range amplifier on the cryptographic sequencer to hack the panel without them noticing, but that didn't exactly work out. So I had to painfully drag 6 thugs around the room, using explosive gel to only slightly damage them. I did get lucky enough a few times to hit all 6 with explosive gel at the same time, but in general this was a very slow process, one that from start to finish took me more than 3 minutes to complete. And honestly, the worst part is that in terms of a ratio of number of thugs to time it takes to take them down, this was one of the better fights where I had to rely only on explosive gel. Seriously, the small fights against only 2 or 3 thugs sprinkled throughout the game took up so much time this run. In a weird turn of events, the aviary didn't consist of me mostly killing thugs like it usually does. Instead, I was forced to mainly throw thugs off this ledge rather than into the bottomless pit, and that's not even to mention how terrible things went to start out. But with all of these guys down, I headed into the secret lab to destroy the rest of Joker's Titan supply. Unfortunately, Joker injected 2 of his guys with Titan, distracting me long enough for him to make a getaway with a bunch of his supplies. I guess destroying the lab would have to do for now, but I still had a lot of work ahead of me. Now, this fight had me a bit worried. I mean, if Bane had to be punched to be taken down, would the Titan thugs really be any different? Well, as it turns out, they are in fact different. Much to my surprise, this entire fight was possible using nothing but batarangs and explosive gel. Bataranging them when they charged did decent damage, and although explosive gel did seemingly the same amount, it was a lot riskier to go for that. So the majority of my damage came from using batarangs on them and them hitting each other if I got lucky, or me baiting them into it. An interesting discovery I made was that if I placed explosive gel when they were both stunned, their animations would sync up perfectly. But no matter what, it always seemed the white thug would take priority over the black thug, since he was the one being damaged by the attacks. What did Rocksteady mean by this? Racism aside, I finished the fight off by just placing explosive gel by each Titan thug when they went down, knocking them out and finishing the fight. I even managed to destroy the Titan containers mid-fight by baiting one of them to throw a dead body into them. Plus, I guess Rocksteady made up for the racism by despawning the white guy and keeping the black guy around. Seriously, what did Rocksteady mean by any of this? At this point in the run, I could sense that my lantern ring was starting to run out of power. If I wanted to take down Joker, I'd have to find some way to power it back up. Lucky for me, Croc just so happened to be growing his own recreational Green Lantern power battery plants, so I headed there to borrow some. On my way there, I ran into these thugs, who thought they could fool me by dressing up as guards. Little did they know that I knew they were deathly afraid of passing this doorway for some reason, a fact that I abused to easily take them all down. Also on my way there, I had to deal with the third and final Scarecrow nightmare. For the most part, everything was unchanged, but the part that scared me was the fights against his skeletons. The first group was pretty large, making it insanely difficult to get explosive gel down without getting hit. I even died to them once. The next section I was worried about was 3 waves of skeletons I had to defeat at the end of the nightmare. Fortunately, this ended up being pretty easy. The first wave consisted of 2 groups of 6, each of which went down with a single explosive gel. The second wave was just 1 Titan Thug, who went down after a single Batarang. And for the third wave, I took down most of them using explosive gel I had previously placed, used a single Batarang on the Titan Thug, and then used the Ultra Bat Claw to stun the remaining skeletons long enough to place more explosive gel. And just like that, Scarecrow's nightmares were over. Even though he did escape, Croc gave me a hand and took him down, seeing him as a direct threat to his recreational Green Lantern energy empire. But with Scarecrow probably dead, it was time to collect Croc's plants and head back to the Batcave to power the ring back up. Croc himself was no more difficult than usual, but I did die 3 times here. The first was because my controller decided it was going to die right before he popped out. The second was because he decided to spawn camp me. And the third was because I forgot how terrible the Quickfire Batarang is against Croc. With what little power I had left in my ring, I took down Croc and was on my way back to the Batcave to power up again. Unfortunately, Ivy didn't like me using Croc's plants the way I did, and attacked the Batcave. At the very least, my ring was powered back up though, so it was time to make my way out of the sewers, deal with Ivy, and then finally take down Joker. Before leaving, I grabbed the Ultra Bat Claw, which didn't break the game this time. In order to leave the sewers, I had to shut down 2 pumps. The first was easy enough, since I just used the range amplifier upgrade to hack this panel without even having to fight these guys. The final Predator section of the run in the control room, just like every single other one up until this point, was just a matter of dragging thugs over ledges. I did get myself spotted almost instantly though, leaving me 1 shot from death the entire first attempt. And after a bit, I just decided to restart the encounter. My second attempt, I tried to skip the encounter by just hacking the panel and using armor upgrades to tank the damage, but that didn't exactly work out. My third attempt went near flawlessly until the end, where I very nearly died to the second to last thug. But through nothing but pure skill and absolutely 0 luck, I cleared the last 2 thugs and was on my way to the... I literally have the word blank written in the script here, because I forgot to get the actual name for what this area is called. But anyways, I went there to defeat the Titan Thug and the army of enemies waiting for me. I preemptively placed 3 explosive gel to use on the Titan Thug as soon as he spawned, but unfortunately only damaged him an amount smaller than Batman's left arm in every Arkham game. All in all, this fight didn't end up being too bad. The electric fences made dealing with thugs relatively easy, and we already learned from the Botanical Gardens that Titan Thugs are extremely easy to deal with. The frequency detonator upgrade made him even easier to knock out too, since I now could just place a bunch of explosive gel and only detonate whatever ones helped me in the moment. This fight, more than anything, was just a testament to how trivial and easy a lot of sections become in this game if you abuse the environment around you, and your massive arsenal of gadgets. All that stood between me and Joker at this point was Ivy, so I headed back to the Botanical Gardens to deal with her. And to nobody's surprise, her fight was exactly the same as usual. The only part of this fight where you even can use anything other than gadgets is against these guards, which aren't exactly hard to evade and are automatically knocked out before I'm even given the opportunity to place explosive gel. You know, the only time they'd be an actual threat. I do also think it's funny that since I haven't countered a single attack for the entire run, the game is still tutorializing how to counter. But with the guards a complete non-threat, I spammed Batarangs and explosive gel to take down Ivy, and was finally on to Joker. I did have a small fight against these 2 Titan Thugs and some normal thugs, but I think it's obvious by now how this fight went. The only even remotely difficult part was my inability to easily take down the normal thugs, but the Titan Thugs were more than okay with helping me out there. Now all that was left was to face Joker, but he still had a trick or two up his sleeve.
Nice Nicely done, Bats. You deserve a prize. Your old pal, Let's pep him up.
No! Batman! Get away!
I couldn't believe it. This strain of Titan, it was like nothing I've ever felt before. There was only one conclusion I could make, and Joker spelled it out for me. This wasn't just any old version of Titan. This was new. This was made up of 0% luck, 0% skill, 100% concentrated power of will, 0% pleasure, 0% pain, and for some reason, approximately 55% reason to remember the name. Joker couldn't handle it just being me all roided up though, so he decided to join me. One thing he overlooked though was the fact that I now had enough willpower to resist the physical changes, meaning it was a perfectly normal Batman versus this monstrosity of a Joker. For the sake of Hal and the entirety of the Green Lantern Corps, I had to take Joker down, and as sad as I am to say it, it wasn't possible with only gadgets. No matter what, you're forced to attack Joker after downing him in this fight. Precisely 6 times you have to hit him, 3 for each of the first 2 times he's pulled down. The entire rest of the fight is possible, but unfortunately, I proved that no, you cannot beat Batman Arkham Asylum with only gadgets. Even though the rule set from the very beginning was kinda cheating since I gave myself every gadget to start, it was still disheartening to see Bane and Joker be the only 2 other failure points this run. Either way, this challenge was a lot of fun, and I highly recommend trying it out for yourself. I'd also highly recommend becoming a channel member, or at the very least subscribing, liking, or commenting. Special thank you to channel member TJ Tracker. Thank you so much to everyone who made it to the end of the video, it really does mean a lot to me. That's all I've got for now. See ya.
Green Lantern of Sector 2814. Report.
Earth is also free of yellow fear energy. But the Manhunters escaped, and I'll bet you one ring they're still planning to attack Oa. And I'm fine too, thank you for asking.
The Guardian Council believes you are correct. They possess a Tilto and intend to attack us. But all knowledge of the Tilto's existence must be kept secret. All you need is to trust in us.